Hello everyone. Okay, so let's talk about what variable scope is. Okay, scope. All right, so far we have only seen variables that we declare in the main method, right? We mentioned that a method, right, is simply one or more lines of code wrapped up together with curly opening and closing curly braces, right? And given a name. In this case, remember when we were talking about the parts of a Java program, we said this is called the main method because it has a name main, and it has opening and closing curly braces, and we basically write our code in here. We write our code in the main method, and we said the main method is basically the first method that is called or that is executed when we basically run our program. So this is the main method. Don't worry too much about the keywords here. We'll talk more about them when we get into methods. But we have seen so far we've declared all our variables in the main method, right? And so the scope of a variable, when you declare a variable, say int, we call it age, right? And we terminate it. When we declare this variable, we declare this variable in the main method. The scope of this variable, the scope simply means where this variable can be accessed, right? Or where it can be used. The scope basically begins right here. It begins right on this line, meaning this variable is recognized right on this line, not before it, right on this line. This is now, once you write it, basically type the statement here, this variable is now available to the program and it can be used afterwards. Anything below it can basically, because it exists, it has been created here, anything below this line can use this variable. If you, not before it, and I'll get into it. All right, now we'll get more into scope, okay, but I want you to have an idea. So the scope of this variable is basically begins right here and ends at the end, basically right at the end, before the closing curly braces of the method that the variable is created in. This method is, so this variable is in the main method. It's created in the main method. So the scope of this variable, where this variable can be accessed, is just within the main method. When we try to access this variable anywhere else in our program outside of this main method, the program will complain and say it doesn't exist. This method is only alive, okay? It's only available to basically code that is inside of this main method but below it, okay? All right, so again, okay, the scope of this variable, where this variable can be accessed, where it's visible, where it can be used, first of all, is only within the method that it's declared in. In this case, it's declared in the main method, and again, we'll talk more about methods. Okay, so anywhere within that, it begins right where it's declared. Even in the method, it begins right where it's declared, and it ends right, okay, at the end, before the curly brace of the method that it is declared in. Okay, so if I declare a variable age and I initialize it to, let's say, 27, right, which is my current age, I can go ahead and print it, system.out.println. And again, we'll talk more about scope, but I want you to have an idea now. And I can print out age, compile this and run, and it prints out 27, right? It was able to print out 27 because at this point, right, age has existed, right? It had been created and it had a value. So when I asked it, when I told the program to print out what is stored in age, it said, okay, I know that age exists and I know its value is 27, so I'm printing out 27 for you, right? Now, first of all, this line of code exists in the main method, basically where this variable was created, and so it can access this variable. Any code outside of this main method can't access this variable, okay? So it has to be code inside of this method. And even in this method, right, it has to be right after the variable has been created, okay? So the scope, okay, has to be in this method, first of all, the method that the variable is created in, and basically below where the variable is created. So if I try to do this, take the system.out.println before the variable is created, right? Let's see what happens. I compile it it says it cannot find symbol. What it means is it cannot find h. It doesn't know what h. It is saying the symbol is variable h, the variable h. Okay, and the location is in the Learn Java class. All right, so it's saying, hey, I can't find this. You may think you have declared age, right, in this method, main method, all right, and you may think, oh, this line is also in the main method, so it should be able to access this. No, you should realize that the way the compiler works, it reads your code line by line. It starts from the first line, moves to the second line, moves to this line, moves to this line, and then it gets to this line, and you're basically telling it to print out age. It's saying, what is age? I don't know what it is, because it hasn't been created yet. It doesn't exist yet, because it reads it line by line. It gets to this point, it doesn't know what it is yet. Okay, and so it will complain and say it doesn't exist. It hasn't, according to this program, when it gets to this line, it hasn't seen this line yet. It hasn't created the age and initialized it with a value of 27 yet, and so it's complaining. And so first of all, make sure that your code that is accessing the variable, okay, both the code that is accessing the variable and basically where the variable is declared, both lines of code have to be in the same method, right? And second of all, make sure that make sure that the variable has been created before you're accessing it, okay? Or the variable exists, okay, before you access it. So you have to make sure you create a variable before you use it. So it reads it line by line at this point. Remember, the white space doesn't matter in your code, right? So don't worry about the white space. So it reads line by line. It gets to this line. It creates a variable called age, which can store an integer, and stores in it 27. And so when it gets to this line and it says print out age, it knows that age exists and it can print out 27. When I compile this, we know that this works. Right. Okay. Also, make sure that you don't declare variables, okay, two variables with the same name, right? So over here, I have declared a variable called called age of type int, and it can store, or basically it's storing the value 27, and then I print it out here. When I come to the next line and I declare it again, age int, okay, and I set it to, let's say, a different value, 45, and I try to print out age again, compile it, and we have an error, and it's saying over here age is already defined in main. Over here it tells you, and it even tries to tell you the line over here. You can see that you see this 7 here, line 7 here, Java 7, okay, error, you see the 7 here, which means line 7. So it's telling you that this age over here that you're trying to declare and store 45 in is already defined in the main method here. Okay, and it's true. It's already been defined here in main. And so you can't create variables with two different names, right? It's different from when you're doing something like this. Okay, over here we have declared a variable of type int, named it age, stored 27 in here. We're printing it as 27. And over here, we've seen this before. We're changing the value of this same variable. We're not declaring it. We know we've declared this variable already. We're just changing the value of this variable that exists already. We're changing it from 27 to 45, and so 27 has been replaced to 45, and we are printing it again. So first we declare a variable, store 27 in there, print it, change the value, and then print it. So we're going to see two different values, right? 27 and 45. So compile this, run it, see 27 and 45. Okay. All right. So that's basically an overview of the scope of a variable. We'll talk more about the scope of a variable when we get to methods, and even as we move on, even in the beginning videos. And so don't worry about it. Just want you to have an overview and a feel of it, and you'll have more understanding as we move on. Okay. If you have any questions, please comment down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next video. Okay. Bye-bye.